Yeah, Chata, you spoke about the rice farms in the east. I remember that sometime in Lagos as well, Governor Fashola was clearing the streets of miscreants and all that and taking them to some camp and teaching them skills, but they were all disappearing. So, what, I mean, do you not think that the Nigerian has a basic underlying problem? He wants to be the manager, but he doesn't have the prerequisite experience or education. He cannot see himself being an artisan. And artisans are the ones who are making money now, if you ask me. I mean, if you want a plumber, you know how much it's going to charge you. You call a carpenter in, you know how much it's going to charge you. Yet nobody wants to do those jobs. Everybody wants put on a tie and work in an office. Don't we have a psychological problem?
I wouldn't go so far as to say psychological. I would say it's a problem of orientation. We spent too many years, and I'm speaking as a child who grew up in the 80s. We spent too many years in that decade, especially, glorifying white-collar jobs at the expense of blue-collar jobs. So we're only reaping the benefits of that miscampaign, because that's what it was. It was a very bad campaign. Too many people see that the only jobs in their minds that are worth being called sir, being respected
It's an
in
office job.
are white collar jobs. So we need a reorientation, which was what I said earlier. However, coming back to what Peter said here, there are some parts of it that I would agree with and some that I disagree with. Now, when I say underemployment is a bigger problem, you see, the issue of underemployment is that many of the would-be entrepreneurs are in that category. Now, the question we should be asking is, how do we support these would-be entrepreneurs in order to help them lift more people out of the unemployed zone? Because the fact of the matter is that in any normal economy, it is small businesses that employ the largest number of people. Not the big corporations, not the channels, TVs, and the rest, but small two-man, two to five-man businesses. Those employ the largest number of people. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where if you try to run a small business in this country, it's absolutely bruising. Interest rates are through the roof. Then the banks want you to start paying back immediately. All that.
And then the government is multi-taxing you.
Let's not even talk about the government, because government is working at cross purposes in every angle that you can think of. So that is the real issue. Because if you can help these underemployed people with incentives, you will find that they will end up creating a lot of jobs that will bring that 6.4% out of unemployment. That's where the challenge is. I mean, I don't see any reason why someone should go and approach a bank for a loan of, say, 5 million naira, and they're telling him, okay, we'll give you 5 million naira, but you are going to be paying us back at 22%, and you are going to start paying immediately. Then the question becomes, how does the business grow? Of course, naturally, he's going in taking that, he's going to remove some people from his payroll in order to make ends meet. So, which means he's pushing them to either unemployed or underemployed, depending on the person in question. Because some people will say, "Hey, I've lost my job," and they'll go home and sit down. While some others will get up and start trying to do something. Now, the person who has accepted his fate and gone home to sit down immediately becomes unemployed. While the person who starts to try to do something to stand on his feet is underemployed. While on the other hand, the person who fired both of them takes on less people but burdens them more. So in such a situation, those people are getting dangerously close to being overemployed, because they will probably be working more hours for the same pay. So in that respect, the NBS statistics would have captured those people as employed, fully employed, because they are working the requisite number of hours. But then it now brings another social problem. Their pay, is it worth it? And that's something that the NBS job creation survey does not necessarily capture.
Well, the other issue in capturing the entire country within the study of the NBS is, how does the NBS, Cheta, I'm asking you this now before Mr. Akindojuweze, how does the NBS categorize those that have, we talked about the 419ers, so to speak, the ones who are involved in illegal mining. They are earning a living, so to
Yes.
speak. But how would you categorize, how do you think the NBS, did they capture this group of people?
They probably did. It depends on because now the MBS methodology involves going to specific areas which were provided by the National Population Commission as a result of data captured in the last census. Now, of course, there are holes in this methodology because the last census was 9 years ago now. People have moved, some people have died, communities, for example, there are communities that have entirely relocated because of communal violence and all of that. Now, the thing is, because I didn't interview any miners during the job creation survey. It was mainly farmers. But I'm going to extrapolate here because if you interview people who are miners, many of them in Nigeria don't necessarily know that they are mining illegally. It is the people who employed them that know that it's not legal. They are just after a job. So based on the NBS questionnaire, they will answer. So they will be captured. But they don't know, they will be captured as part of the informal sector. They don't know that what they're doing is not legal, so they are captured anyway. They are there.
You talked about creating jobs, moving people away from unemployment and underemployment to outsourcing to, what are the other things you talked about? Small and medium enterprises, agriculture. The infrastructure to run this establishment or these avenues you're talking about, do we have it on ground?
Well, we don't at the moment. We don't at the moment, but it's something we can start. Countries like India, countries like China, countries like Singapore started from somewhere, and they are where they are today. China has an unemployment rate of about 4.1. India has about 3.6. So they started somewhere. The story is not hopeless. I think it's something we can begin to put in place. And for the incoming government, if we can really tackle corruption, you'll see that we can actually put a lot of infrastructure in place. What we probably require is less than half of what we have spent already. So if we can block all the holes, I believe we have enough to put infrastructure in place. For instance, the IT-enabled outsourcing space, we need internet facility to be as cheap as possible. We need to deliberately create Silicon Valleys. We need to, the agricultural space, we need to do more of mechanized farming. Then talking about the orientation, I think I will agree with that because it's actually about our value system. We need to do more. I know the last dispensation tried some national reorientation campaign, but I think they should have looked at the dignity of labor, why they should have gone to the roots to actually know what the problems were, not just take a team at the top and run by that. I think we actually need to do a lot of orientation. People need to believe in the dignity of labor. We moved from actual being productive to just believing that as long as you have money, you are reckoned with, you are valued by what you have and all of that. In other climes, it is what you are able to do. It is what you create that determines your value, not necessarily how much you have in your bank account or how much you have in your pocket. So we have a lot to do in that regard.
Okay, you spoke about Silicon Valley, and I'm thinking, where does Peter think he is, for God's sake? I mean, because I was telling Nyota last week that we can't sit down and think about inventing things and think about highfalutin things like Silicon Valley, because we're too busy thinking about the basics of life. We're thinking about water. We're thinking about going to fuel our cars. That may take 6-7 hours. We're thinking about going to look for fuel for our generators. So, I mean, by the time you get home, you're so mentally and physically drained. And you're telling me about Silicon Valley. Well, please, you need to tell me more about this Silicon Valley.
Maybe you need to take a visit to Computer Village in Ikeja, for instance. Yes. We don't need to start from where the US of this world are at the moment. What you need to do is enable those guys, give them some kind of incentives, give them some support, make internet facilities cheaper, and let them have access to this.
Internet without power.
talk about our schools also. Some of these things can be provided. OAU, for instance, relies on the national grid, but they also generate some kind of power. So I think what we require might be germane, it might be huge, but I think we can start from somewhere. I believe we can start from somewhere.
Okay. Cheta, do you think that if trade schools were brought back, it might help our situation, where we're churning out artisans, people who make more than a good living
Grammar
from
schools.
doing those kind of,
Yes,
you know.
yes, that would work. We need. I think the model that we need to think of adopting is the German model, where basically, if you are good with your hands, or they start teaching you. We have this situation where woodwork, for example, is no longer in the curriculum. When I was in secondary school, there was woodwork, there was introtech, there was carving. I learned how to carve stuff. So by the time you do all of this at the class 1 level, then you already know who has an aptitude for this. You know who has an aptitude to just sit for hours and talk. So there's your future politician, there's your future engineer. But we don't have that anymore. So it starts from that basic level. See, some of the scariest things that I see are things like National Common Entrance statistics. National Common Entrance statistics, we find that we are actually having less and less people year on year, starting from, say, 2010. Starting from 2010, how many people start for Common Entrance? 120,000. 2011, 111,000. 2012, 109,000. 2013, 108,000. 2014, 90,000. 2015, 86,000. I mean,
is that for one state or the entire country?
The entire country. Now, when you have those figures, we are creating a whole generation of people who have zero skills, and this is something that's like the way MAMSA from the 80s oriented all of us to be looking only for white-collar jobs. We are creating a whole generation that in 6 years' time, even if the jobs are there, we won't have people to fill them.
All right, I'm afraid we'll have to go. We'll just take this. Let me just read out these tweets here, and we'll be out. Oyeyemi Oyeshalom says, the unemployment rate is more than 6.4%. Tunde Arogumati says, productivity and engagement all year round is essential to resolving unemployment and capable of jump-starting growth. Sochi says, an average bank staff today is overemployed, working more for less pay, especially a service staff. Well, gentlemen, we'll have to go. So let's hear your last statements in 10 seconds.
Last statement, I would disagree. The unemployment rate is quite accurate. The big problem, and I insist on that, because I participated in the survey, so I can say it with all confidence, underemployment is a huge problem, and we must look at it. The devil is in the detail.
I think if we can tackle corruption, we have enough to provide infrastructure within a short while, and then some of these unemployment issues would reduce drastically.
Thank you very much, Chetan Wande, Human Resource Analyst. Thank you for coming. And Peter Akindeju, Human Resource Consultant. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Sunrise will be back in a moment for the home stretch. Don't go away.